talk about um, rescuing and thinking about the perspective of rescuing, because I think a lot of times when we're growing and awakening and evolving, we can think that sometimes we need to rescue people or that, and we believe that it's coming from a place of if I save this person, if I rescue this person, I'm going to be helping them. And really, when we're thinking about rescuing is always coming from a place of I know better than this person. Even though I haven't walked a day in their shoes, I don't know what kind of path they're meant to live or meant to live out. And sometimes in order to prepare you for your greatest path of service, greatest path of helping others, you first need to walk a path of pain, suffering, trauma. And that doesn't mean we stay in traumatic environments, but if someone is doing something to their body, whether through substances, maybe they're lost in some type of self-harm or eating disorder, and we think, I need to rescue or save this person because I know what's best for them. But what if when people are walking a path of suffering, of pain, that is actually what they need to then be inspired to serve and help people the most? And it doesn't mean we don't help people, and it doesn't mean we aren't kind and loving to people who are struggling. It just means that we help people without attachment. Of when I offer advice, whether someone picks it up or ignores that advice is their choice. And I don't need to try and force my will onto that person. I don't need to give them some righteous, aggressive talk on how they're screwing up their life and try and dominate them into making the right choice. I just gently offer advice and I see how they receive it. And how they receive it tells me if they are ready for help or not ready for help. It also might tell me if I'm meant to spend more time or less time with someone. Because if we have friends who are making choices where we go, that's out of integrity, that's going to cause more suffering in your life, or that's leading you more into addictive patterns than it is like health and well-being. And we offer the most beautiful, precise advice about like choices they could make that was better, explaining why they might be craving certain choices or and we explain it beautifully and they just ignore the advice. They're saying, I'm not ready to be helped yet. Because sometimes in order for us to be ready to be helped, we have to explore first what it's like to make a lot of mistakes or to get life completely wrong. And we make so many mistakes that we go, this isn't working for me. The path of using the substance to numb my feelings or using the substance to heal my overwhelm and anxiety, but it just leads me to not being and taking action steps or not taking actions into actually what finding greater health and well-being. It just helps me be blissful in my suffering instead of trying to change that suffering. Or maybe we're like, I for me growing up, like I would like my only coping strategy was like technology and pornography, and I played that out to a point of where I started to really realize, these choices are making me lower functioning rather than higher functioning. And if I actually found ways to care and cope and nurture myself in a way that was healthy, I might be able to live a more amazing life than the life I'm currently living, which kind of sucked. And I learned how to find balance in my life by living a life of imbalance. And if we're a parent, we always can try to offer our best type of guidance, try and talk to our children about the negative effects of overdoing technology, the negative effect of drinking alcohol and smoking weed and using pornography, and like making people informed to then be able to make their own choices. And usually we're choosing negative choices because of underlying wounds we don't want to face, underlying unworthiness, other underlying feeling like we're not enough, or feeling, or like having experiences of trauma and abuse that made us feel different than people who did not have those experiences of trauma and abuse. And the pain we carried in our body from those experiences created a level of suffering and hate and unworthiness that we went, other people don't seem to be having this deep level of pain within them. And so I feel like I'm a separate or outsider because I'm going through more pain than other people. But just because we're going through more pain from than other people doesn't mean that we are unworthy, doesn't mean that we are less than, or are an outsider in humanity, because everyone is going through varying degrees of pain, and you might just have been given a traumatic experience with with that might be different than others, but it doesn't mean others aren't hurting or others aren't suffering as well. And they might be suffering a little less, or they might be suffering in different ways and you just don't see it. And the question is, if I feel like an outsider, can I work to find ways to still put myself out there, find ways to, even though I hear that perspective, that doesn't have to be a perspective that I identify with. And that's one of the things that we get caught up of, is if we feel strong feelings of I am an outsider, I am separate, and then because it is the strongest feeling or thought in our mind, we then resonate and identify with that. But that is a choice. And you can go, what would be the opposite of this feeling? Feeling included, feeling like I belong, and what would be the choices, or what would be the ways I could put myself out there, or where could I find greater community that would help me feel more like I belong and less like I'm an outsider. Because everyone is hurting. Everyone is going through different degrees of pain. And while some people might be hurting more, that doesn't mean you are unworthy. That doesn't mean you aren't enough exactly as you are. That's just a perspective of your pain talking through you. That's a perspective that we've identified with. It doesn't have to be true. And we have a choice on what we choose to identify with by, do I hear the negative voices in my head and think that's a reminder of how unworthy I am? Or do I hear the negative voices in my head, or how I'm not enough, or how I need to constantly push myself, even when sometimes I feel like I really need a break or rest? And do I take those voices as a reason to love, encourage, and be gentler and softer with myself? Because no one is healed through force. No one is healed through aggression. I would say we never need to come. Sometimes we can be passionate and be passionate in how we're standing up for people, but we don't need to force people to see us in a certain way, and we don't need to force others to help themselves when they're not ready to do that yet. And when we're thinking about, if someone sees you in a way that you think isn't very kind, or they're constantly pointing out what you're doing wrong, or they have a tendency to become really irritable and negative around you, someone you don't need to spend that much time with. And if they're part of our family, maybe we give them a little grace, and maybe we just see them a lot less and don't really reach out to them, and we just visit every now and then. And if they're a friend or a partner, not really someone we need to be in relationship with, because why would you want to be in relationship with someone that you feel like you're walking on eggshells? You feel like you are you have to hold your tongue around because you're afraid of them upsetting them and them lashing out at you, or feel like feel like you just got bit by like a metaphorical snake, or feel more wounded after spending time with them. We get to choose how little or how much toxicity we have in our life, and we really should settle for very little toxicity. And something I've been learning on my journey is like, with friends and with like romantic relationships, I don't need to settle for toxicity at all because there's someone out there that could meet me better. And if I say no to this person or tell this person I don't want to be connected to them, it's going to redirect them to people who are more aligned with where they are at along their journey. It'll redirect me to people who can meet me better. And with family, I'm learning that, sometimes I can be a little bit more graceful. And like, I don't need, just because my family is not always perfect, or maybe they're a little negative or toxic, I think family in my life has a little bit of a deeper bond. And with the people that stress me out, or it feels like I got bit by a snake or wounded after spending time with them, I see them less, but I still go and see them every now and then because I know my presence is a little helpful and helping them find their way along their journey. And so we all have to become aware of what feels true to me. Who do I want in my life? Who do I not want to see? But we really should be sacrificing our own, what we need in our own heart, like as little as possible. We should be putting ourselves in environments where people are mistreating us or hurting us as little as possible. And if someone in your family you're very concerned about, and you've offered advice to them and they've just ignored it or pretended like they didn't hear it, they might be saying that I need to explore the choices I am making a little longer. And the length of time I spend in suffering and pain is going to inspire my greatest level of self-care, my greatest level of helping others in the future, as long as I survive these choices. And if we are worried that someone is going to die, or someone is using substances, or lost in some act of self-harm that we think could kill them, then it's a question of, and I've offered advice and they don't hear it, and I've been very direct and honest with this person and they just ignore the suggestions I've had, and we love and care about this person, and maybe this person is a part of our family or was a close friend at some time, then we can consider having some type of intervention. But usually in interventions, it isn't all on you, and it isn't all on trying to force this person to change, but it's about getting their friends or getting my friends that are mutual friends or getting their family together, and we as a group ask this person to like get help or consider change. And if someone is in a place where we're worried about them dying, that's something to consider. And that is maybe the one time when we can maybe come from a perspective of, I hope the action step I take of getting people together, telling this person how much we love and care about them and hoping they change. Maybe that's a time when we can be a little bit more attached to the outcome of wanting someone to choose differently, is when their life is at risk. But most of the time, we don't need to force people to change. And when we're coming from a place of rescuing, we're really coming from a place of force and superiority of, I think I know better than this person. I think I know better than their angels and guides. I think I know better than the universe, and I know what choice this person needs to be making. And ignoring the path that person might be on that's actually serving them. Because suffering, the gift of illness, the gift of any virus is that when we survive our pain, when we heal from it, when we heal the wounds of unworthiness, when we heal the addictions we had, our integrity, our morality, our system, if we heal from illness, oftentimes is stronger after surviving that illness than if we had never gone through it in the first place. And it's the reason why things like illness, viruses, addictions are allowed on this planet, because humans become stronger by going through hardship and challenges. And sometimes those hardships and challenges is going to be a path of addiction, is going to be a path of illness and disease. that then gets you to commit to your greatest health and care afterwards. And we maybe even go through an addiction or illness that wears out our body, but the deeper gift is the morality or integrity you have to stand for the highest good. And so, not everything is going to maybe make your body stronger, but it will make your character and who you are stronger. And that's something, that I've really learned from is like with pornography and going through that, it really made me stand for if like pornography is a mindset of it, the people that sex is what gives me value. Like anyone using pornography or chasing their next casual dating relationship is coming from a subtle perspective of I receive greater value by who chooses to have sex with me, and being unaware of the fact that every time you have sex with someone, you are sharing energy with them and you are becoming more like them, whether their choices are choices you'd want to be choosing or not. And that's really, and you're sharing your microbiome with them, and and your personality and who you are will change based on who you're sharing that deep energy swap with through sex or physical intimacy. and and being mindful of when we are aligned with our highest integrity, when we're aligned with the highest will of our heart, we're incredibly picky of who we let get that close to us, because we do not want to become more like people who aren't in a full alignment of who we'd act, who what we like, who what we actually stand for, or who we'd actually like to become. And so for me, like watching pornography and then waking up from it and healing from it made me incredibly maybe stand for a level of I'm not going to share physical intimacy. I'm not going to date people who aren't a holy crap, holy shit, I want to be more like this person, who aren't like, hell yes, I can't believe this is my partner. They are that amazing. And I only got to that perspective because of my pornography use, and it strengthened my character. And it's the gift of whatever illness, disease, addiction we are working ourselves through is it if you can survive it, if you can heal from it, you will stand for a greater level of care for yourself, a greater level of discernment, a greater level of care for your heart, and a greater level of what is actually good for me and can I live my life in that alignment once we heal from that pattern. And everyone is on their own journey, and some people are going to be need to spend longer times in patterns than others. And that's something to be aware of is if someone's not taking my advice, they might be not taking it because in order for them to get to the perspective I have in life, or in order for them to build their strongest character, they might need to spend a little bit more time in suffering, and it's the real reason their soul isn't picking up the advice I'm offering to them. And, when we look at it from the perspective of our angels, our guides, the universe, like I really believe every person is held in the palm of the universe. Every person, every step they are taking, they are being held by the Divine Mother and Divine Father that walks with them, whether they're aligned in consciousness or not, and they're playing out their greatest pain or suffering to then inspire to their greatest self-care, their greatest standing for peace, the greatest standing for unconditional love for all. And and our angels and guides, our divine father, our divine mother, that's always with us, that is always an energy that we can tune into to ask for help. Even if you just said, Divine Mother, please offer me guidance, please offer me assistance through this time. Angels, please show me a perspective that will help me through this time easier. Angels and guides, please give me ideas of choices I could be making that will help me quicker through this transition. However, we wish to ask for help, it doesn't have to be some big, lengthy process. They're always with you. They hear when you ask questions and call them. and they will offer assistance, maybe not in that moment, but new ideas that you'll think often were yours, where you're like, oh, that's a great idea. I should try that. And we think it's our own thought, but it's really our angels and guides answering our questions and dropping those thoughts into our energy field, into our mind. Or we'll get some type of synchronicity of like just deciding to go do something different that day that then leads into an opportunity that solves the problem that we're going through. And sometimes we will ask for help and the help doesn't really come because our angels and guides are asking us to go through this experience with a little less assistance that actually is going to help cultivate the character or cultivate the person that we really desire becoming. So sometimes there's going to be times in your life where you have problems or situations where you're not going to receive a lot of help and it's actually the situation that is your greatest gift, and our angels, our guides are not, they don't care what you have or don't have in your life. What they care is who you become. And so they are always offering the guidance that is helping you become your most incredible, empowered, whole, godlike self. And they let you make mistakes. If you ever like being aware of like times where you really fucked up or really made some choices where you're like, oh my God, that like really was like a major shift in my life that took me down a whole different path than if I hadn't made that choice. And your angels and guides let you mess up. They let you make mistakes because they understand that almost all the time people learn from mistakes more than they learn from having easy, flowy days. And it doesn't mean that we don't try and choose easy, flowy days more often. We try and stay in that alignment, and our angels and guides will help us have days when we need days like that. But they also understand that humanity is going through rapid change, rapid ascension and growth right now, and people are learn more. And if we're aligned with growth and aligned with change, oftentimes we really start to stand for greater growth and change when we really fuck up or we make mistakes. And we always try our best to have the most peaceful, easeful, flowing life possible. But when we make mistakes, it's really a call for greater growth, greater stepping into our power, greater looking at how could I have done this differently? How can I make choices in the future that is going to take me out of the hardship I've found myself in due to the choices I've made, and inspired us to change in a way we never would have changed if we hadn't made those mistakes or hadn't found choices that led us to greater hardship and challenges. And it's something I've learned. Like I went through a period where I was really into meditating and fasting and praying because I was curious about like, will this lead to, if I really go for it, will it lead to enlightenment? Will it lead me to embodying a level of consciousness where, I don't know, you can manifest things at will? Will a spirit guide come to me and tell me I'm now a Buddha? What happens if you really meditate, pray, and fast? And what I learned is what happens is I ended up getting hospitalized, had to move in with my parents, and went through like a year and a half where I really struggled because, while my parents are awesome, kind of hard to live with, kind of people that I like to see in the most loving way possible, like every now and then rather than every day. And and I learned to take greater responsibility for my life and go, what kind of life? Like this is the last video that I post, but like what kind of life do I want to live? And can I build that? Because we really create our life due to the choices we make every day, due to the words we speak to ourselves and speak to others. And oftentimes, if we want to choose better, the first step is just feeling better about ourselves and saying words that are kind to ourselves and encouraging and loving the parts of ourselves that hate ourselves or think that we suck, or making poetry or art about those parts as a way of expressing that pain out of you. But really realizing, like going through that, I realized how much power we have to create the life that we want to live. And it might be a journey, but the same with like rescuing people, can I help myself and can I help others without attachment to the outcome? Because that isn't true when we're aligned in consciousness of I work towards what I want to create into my life, no matter how little, how slowly or how fast it comes into my life. And oftentimes the things that arrive the fastest are when we want them the least. Because we are in a place of detachment, which is, or neutrality, which is really the deepest level of consciousness. And you get to a place of neutrality by having your masculine and feminine fully balanced within you, which the feminine is intentional. What do I want to create? How do I want to create it? What type of life do I want to live? And then the masculine listens to the feminine and goes, okay, what would be the first step for me to take along the path to create what the feminine wishes to birth? And they work in unison, and they work from a place of we are working to create what we want to create no matter when or how it comes into our life, but we do it, and we do it slowly and mindfully and thoughtfully and aligned with our greatest integrity of I'm not going to try and step over people or try and take shortcuts. I'm going to do it that would in the way that would actually be the most fulfilling for me, because the gift really is in the journey. The gift isn't so much in the outcome. And oftentimes when we're doing something, an attachment to the outcome or attachment of I do this and I hope this comes into my life is when when the journey is the most insufferable, because we aren't enjoying the journey. We're just trying to get to the end of the journey so we can have what we want. And what you realize is if I just enjoy the journey really was what I wanted. It wasn't even the thing that I thought was going to make me happy or fulfill me or make my life easier. I wanted the growth I would have by going through the journey. I did, and the thing of accomplishing or reaching the goal I had or building the thing I wanted to build, whether that's a career or whether that's like the relationships I hope to have in my life, that's just the cherry on top. Mm. And when we're thinking about when we're thinking about helping people, it's all about helping people from a place of detachment, which is I give people advice, I give people love and kindness, and I have no attachment to how or when they change or when they start to make better choices. Like I know a couple people who are in relationships who I go, I don't really know if this relationship is working for you. And instead of trying to like give them some righteous, aggressive talk on how they need to choose better or see this relationship differently, when they've asked me about what I think about the relationship, or if or if they ask me about how I relate in relationships, I just talk about my perspective, whether that's my perspective and how I go about thinking about who to date, or a perspective of how I see the relationship, and whether they pick it up or don't pick it up, that's their journey. And if they didn't pick it up, it's their soul saying, hey, they're going to still learn more from this by being in this relationship than you solving this for them by giving them the perfect perspective, even if the advice you gave really was perfect. And so you go, okay, they got angels, they got guides, they're held by the universe, they will find their way. And that's how you know when you're really aligned with your greatest consciousness and truth is consciousness doesn't need to force its will onto others. If we truly believe that what we are sharing is true or helpful, we never need to force it, because truth in the end, love in the end always wins. And people, whether it's in this life or the next lifetime or 10 lifetimes down the road, are going to find their way to the perspective and truth you shared with them. And while obviously we want to be healthy and people to have loving and peaceful lives, the world is a world of experiences, and it's not a world that's always going to be lined in the highest, most pure truth. And we play out lower truths to then find our way to higher truths. And we have to allow people to do that, because they're not going to get to higher truths if they can't play out the experiences they've had in lower truth. And so we lead with detachment of, I try and help people when I can. I love people when I'm in their presence, or I love them from afar if I don't really like being in their presence or don't like how they talk to me. And maybe with family, we give them a little bit more grace, but still don't need to see them that often if they're not nice to us. And we just learned that real power is being as allowing everyone to walk their own path, their own journey. And if I can be detached from outcomes with myself, with others, it's actually when I'm going to have the most peace, ease, and when I'm going to form a deeper trust with the universe of God's got me, the universe got me. It's not gonna allow something to happen that really wouldn't be in alignment with that person's highest good, even if even if it doesn't look like it's in their highest good, or even if it doesn't look like this thing happening when it happened in the moment didn't really feel like it was in my highest good, because there's always a gift, even if we don't see that gift for 2 to 3 years down the road, and we come from a place of neutrality, is sometimes things are going to need to be destroyed, or we're going to need to suffer, or we're going to need to be in a little pain. And it doesn't mean we seek out that pain. When we always try and align ourselves with the most peaceful, easeful, simple life that we can, that's aligned with our greatest health and well-being, because you can live a life, you can fall into, oh, I wasn't really taking that good care of myself, and now I have cancer, and now I have this illness and disease that I'm now gonna have to try and heal so I can continue to live the life I have. Like, that is an experience. And so we try and live the most peaceful, easeful life with relationships that are loving and nurturing rather than hurtful, in order to help us stay aligned with that more often through our life and our experiences. Is the more often I choose more health and well-being, the more that's going to be attracted to me, and the more that will be the life I live. And the more often I choose suffering and pain, the more that's going to be a life I live. And so we just become aware of I try my best, but my life may sometimes have some suffering and may sometimes have a pain, and that is a gift. The illness and disease that I go through, the injuries you go through, the mental health challenges we have, the addictions we have, it's all a gift. And the question is, how can I choose better? How can I find myself a way through this a little easier? If I feel like I need help and I don't really know who to reach out to, can I ask my angels and guides for some help and guidance through this time? And I have a choice of alignment, but whatever other people are choosing in alignment is their own journey, and they sometimes will only find their way into a peaceful or serene, or trying to live the best life they can, or trying to live the most healthy and fulfilling life they can, by first choosing the opposite. And we have to allow people to make mistakes. And with children, we have, as parents, we do have a role to guide people. Do have a role to explain to our kids why we should find balance using technology, why, things like substances really aren't going to serve you long term, why like pornography use really isn't good to you. And we do have a role as a parent to teach our children or inform them of why it's not good for them, of why it's not healthy, of how it might affect them long term if they use that. But then allowing our children to explore what they need to explore, to then find their way to the perspectives we have about life, and not trying to force or control people to only make certain choices, when sometimes, in order for people to live the most healthy life, they sometimes might need to explore the opposite just a little. And we offer help and we offer guidance without detachment of what they explore or what they choose to look into or be curious about. And we're all going to have to use our inner discernment, especially as parents, of when do I need to step in and set a little bit stronger boundaries, and when can I let them to play out what they need to play out. And we're all going to have to trust our own inner guidance and inner tuition of what that might look like with with our kids, or what that might look like with people who are in a position where we go, as if they're friends or family, and we go, they are harming themselves, that actually could lead to them dying. I love and care about them. Maybe I need to do some type of intervention with their friends or family, to help them along their path. And we're all just going to have to trust our inner guidance of when to do that, what that looks like. And yeah. So I hope that helps. I hope that was a helpful perspective and helpful talk. I also just want this thing that I was going to talk about that I don't think really I shared was that, like, just the last little tidbit is like, if you want to think about when, like, where do we see righteousness or trying to help people, but from a place of attachment in our culture or society, like things like trying to take people's rights to have abortions, trying to take away people's rights for gay marriage, trying to take away people's rights to immigrate to the country they want to immigrate to. Like, that's all coming from the perspective of the politicians or the people that set the laws. They think they know better than that person's journey. They think they know better than women and what women need to do with their body. They think they know better than with people who have different sexual orientations and how they should live their life. And we really start to see a perspective when we think about life like that, of unconsciousness, where people are acting righteous, where people are acting from a place of rescuing or trying to save others from choices that are actually holding people back from having the freedom or having the liberty or being able to make the choices they need to make for their body, for their life, for their relationships. And it's the same whenever we're trying to rescue or save someone. So can we be aware of that? Can I love and offer advice when there's opportunities to, but I don't have to try and force this advice onto people. So thank you for listening. I love you all, and bye.